What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Double G Gaming and back to another one of these. What should we call it? Should we just call this a podcast now? I mean, this is the third straight week where I'm talking to you guys in this style, in this format. So why not? Let's call this podcast number three. Last week I got the goal that I had in mind. I reached it again. While it might be low, I mean, look at how many subscribers I have. So my goal can't be that high. You know what I'm saying? But it got the amount that I was thinking about in my head. I was like, if it gets this amount of views, I'll do another one next week. And that's going to be the same thing going on to next week. Actually, there will not be one next week. Not only because I might be busier, seeing as the holidays are over, we're going back into the swing of things, into living life how it usually is, not the holidays. But I will be back to predict the Royal Rumble, which I believe is in 2 weeks, right? It feels like it got here a little bit quicker than usually it does. But anyway, yeah, I won't be back for another podcast next week, but I will be predicting the Rumble the Wednesday before the Royal Rumble. So the Raw, SmackDown, then the Wednesday after that. I'll record my predictions. I don't know when it'll be out, but I'll record it that Wednesday of the Rumble. So speaking of that, I have a little bit of breaking the fourth wall to share here with you guys. Last week, I was hearing back the YouTube because when I was editing, it was fine to me, but when I heard it back on YouTube, you could hear me breathing, and like I was so annoyed by it. So right now I have the mic a little bit further away, and as I'm saying that, I'm gonna move it a little bit more away from my mouth. So hopefully you can't hear me breathing in between every sentence. And I'm not a heavy guy. Like I'm not. I don't know why the breathing was so hard and why it was picked up so much. Now, if you don't, if obviously no offense to being a bigger guy, but I couldn't understand why it was picking it up that obviously, and that's the first time. Obviously, I've done commentary before with this exact same mic, and I haven't really heard anything like that. So I had to lower the volume to hear it back on YouTube, and it was really annoying. So hopefully this, and as I'm talking now, I can hear myself breathing hard going into the next sentence. But anyway, hopefully you can't hear it as much as last week because it was really annoying to me, and I'm pretty sure if some of you guys heard it, it was annoying to you guys as well. So hopefully it's fine this week. And yeah, let's get into some of these topics that I have for you guys. I won't be going into any sports really. The only thing that really happened was that the Bears, I finally last week, as you guys, if you guys were paying attention, the Bears were playing the game against the Eagles, and I was recording it while the game was going on, so I didn't know what happened yet. I didn't know the outcome until I found out that Cody Parkey missed that field goal, and he cost us the game, obviously. So the Bears are out. The Eagles lost today. They just played the Saints. They blew a comeback, or they blew a lead against the Saints. So that does it for them as well. I was kind of hoping to see the Eagles in the playoffs. And if you want to skip ahead like 3 minutes, I'll be talking a little bit more about this now that I'm here. Might as well just continue it. So the Eagles blew a lead against the Saints, and I was kind of hoping the Eagles go to the Super Bowl again. I don't know why did they bench Nick Foles in the first place? Wasn't he a good quarterback, a decent quarterback? Probably a little bit better than Mitch Trubisky. Why did they ever get rid of him going forward? They have him on the bench being the secondary quarterback to Carson Wentz. I'm guessing Carson Wentz is good. I haven't really seen him play that much, but obviously he took them to the playoffs last year, so he's decent. But why did they even trade Nick Foles, like the starting position? I mean, not trade him in real life or trade him teams. So yeah, so the Saints go on to defeat the Eagles, so they go ahead. People are thinking it's gonna be the Chiefs and the Saints. I don't really care if the Saints make it because I mean Drew Brees, he kind of like fell off, and now he's back on top. I don't really want to see him in the Super Bowl this year. And obviously, I'm not really a big New England Patriots hater, but if somebody else makes it into the Super Bowl besides them from the AFC, I'd be fine with that. I wouldn't want to see another Tom Brady epic fail on the big stage. But even if he does make it, I really wouldn't care. I just don't want to see the Saints. My top two teams to go to the Super Bowl will be the Rams and the Chiefs now. So yeah, that's my Super Bowl prediction: Rams, Chiefs. I think the Rams defeated the. I think they played the Cowboys and they took them out. So we're one step closer to that happening. And then over in the NBA, not really much to talk about. Some stuff going on with the Celtics. They're infighting a little bit. Kyrie Irving getting mad at Gordon Hayward for something, and then also I think Markeith Morris, one of the Morris brothers, I think, push Marcus Smart. I don't know. I'll post a picture for you guys to see, and you guys can see for yourself who it is. But that does it for this sports talk. And also, D Rose could possibly make the All Star team once again this year, and that's pretty cool as a Chicago fan. Good to see him back on top. So that does it for sports talk. If you guys are here just for wrestling, here we go. Let's start right now. We have some stuff from NXT. We are gearing up for NXT Phoenix Takeover and a match that is going to take three matches that are going to take place that I'm going to talk about here that I saw on this week's episode of NXT. Actually, not. I didn't watch the episode. I just watched clips on YouTube. We had Johnny Gargano, Ricochet. So I'm guessing that's going to be a match. That should be a classic one. And then also Tommaso Ciampa versus Aleister Black. Do they take the belt off of Ciampa here? Is Johnny Gargano ever going to capture the big one, so to speak, in NXT, or are they just going to have him win the North American Championship? Which I would be fine with, but does Gargano just win that and then when he loses it? How long have these guys been on NXT to begin with? Gargano and Ciampa, I'm talking about. They've been on NXT since like 2015. We're going on like 4 years. That has to be the longest time that any NXT champion or champions, because they've been tag champs together, have been on the NXT roster. Part of it has to do with Ciampa being out and them dragging that storyline out for a whole year. But yeah, what's going on here? Why are these guys? Hopefully they. I mean, Ciampa is probably gonna lose the NXT Championship at Takeover in WrestleMania. Takeover Brooklyn, I think is what it's gonna be called, because they are in New York. So will Ciampa lose it there and then go to the main roster? And what about Johnny Gargano? What is the plans for him? Is he gonna win the NXT Championship here, the North American Championship here, and then lose it at Brooklyn? These guys really need to be brought up because I mean, but at the same time, are they gonna be used well on the main roster? You know what I mean? So they're doing some good stuff in NXT with those four guys, especially Gargano, Ricochet. That should be a great one, and Ciampa Black should not disappoint. Probably the match of the night is going to be Gargano versus Ricochet anyway. But obviously, I doubt that will main event over Ciampa and Black. And then something else that I saw, the Women's Championship match is going to be Shayna Baszler versus Bianca Belair. And I'm not 100% behind this Bianca Belair character. Now, that's probably an unpopular opinion, but what exactly is her gimmick? Is it the EST stuff? With her saying she's the fastest, strongest, biggest, best? Is that her gimmick? Her just saying that? I mean, it's fine. It's fine gimmick. But I was watching the interview that she did on NXT on YouTube, and she did this thing that probably not a lot of people understand. But I'm from the south side of Chicago, and if you guys know where that is or are from there, if you have ever heard a girl smack their lips, and if you want, I'll show you what video. It was just go to the. This should be dropping before the next NXT episode, so go back on YouTube and check out their NXT clips and look for the Bianca Belair one. At the end, when she says she's undefeated, she does this. I'm not gonna make the noise because it fucking annoys me. She says, "I'm undefeated." She smacks the shit out of her lips, and then says, like, finishes the word undefeated. But that smack, if she does that in every promo, let me know in the comments. Because if she does, there's no way I'm ever gonna get behind her just because of that. Coming from the south side of Chicago, every time I would hear a girl do that, that would annoy the f out of me. Like, there is nothing worse than that. Probably like rolling a chick rolling her eyes is probably just on the same level, maybe a little bit less annoying than them smacking their lips. Just go back and watch that promo, or if you know what I'm talking about, you'll know what I'm talking about. Go back and watch that promo. When she says undefeated at the end, when she smacks her lips, that's so annoying. So I doubt. And do they give her the belt at NXT Phoenix? Over Shayna Baszler? Who knows? And maybe that I'll watch that match because I haven't been watching any of the Shayna Baszler matches ever since she took on Ember Moon, and I didn't really watch any Ember Moon matches for the championship. I'll probably watch this one because it's a little bit different, so I can see kind of what Bianca Belair is all about. So that's it for that NXT stuff. And we had the NXT UK takeover in Blackpool on Saturday. I'm recording this on January 13th, late at night. And I was gonna watch it, but then I had it all spoiled for me, and I was like, do I really want to watch this? Not really. I watched a little bit of it. I watched the first two matches. I think the first two matches were the tag match and then the Finn Balor entrance, or the not the entrance, but the Finn Balor surprise to have a match with Jordan Devlin, I believe is his name. And I couldn't watch it after that because I was just like, first of all, it was like 10 p.m., so I was like, I really just want to go to sleep, even though it was a Saturday night. I was like, fuck this shit. I'm not really trying to watch this right now. So I didn't. I didn't watch anything else besides that, and I didn't even watch the Finn Balor ending to that match. But yeah, the Jordan Devlin and Jordan Banks, or see, I have no idea who these guys are. Travis Banks, I believe, actually. Yeah, let me know in the comments what their names are. And speaking of names, why didn't they give the first ever tag team title belts? And first of all, those belts, beautiful stuff. I mean, why don't they come up with some new designs for the WWE main roster belts before they give these NXT UK takeover or NXT UK promotions decent looking belts? I mean, those belts, I'll put a picture for you guys. They are one of a kind. I don't think I've seen anything like it. And thumbs up for me. I mean, those belts, delicious. And they do this a lot with first ever tag team, or not tag team, first ever titles or first ever tournaments as of late. They've probably done it before, but I've noticed this more of a pattern now. Ever since the Cruiserweight tournament, at first I was like, okay, they gave it to TJP, whatever. But why wouldn't they give it to a bigger? Why wouldn't they give it to Mustache Mountain here? They are the more established act. I get that they're trying to build the guys that won it. I forget what their names are. It was like James Drake and Seth Gibson, I believe. Sorry if I'm wrong on that. But they give it to them. Why not just give it to? I get that they're trying to build them up, newer talent. But why not have Mustache Mountain win? Start the night off hot as fuck. You get what I'm saying? Start it off hot. Give the first ever tag team titles to an established act in Mustache Mountain, and then later on have Gibson and Drake, do some more dastardly deeds. I'm guessing they were the heels, so do more dirty deeds, so to speak, on Mustache Mountain, and then maybe at the next takeover that they do, or in a couple weeks, then give it to them. Now that more people know who they are and they've been getting over doing this heel stuff to Mustache Mountain and stuff, then give it to them down the line. Not first ever. Like when you think of first ever WWE champion, wasn't it Bruno Sammartino? Big guy, big name. Okay, first ever, first ever hardcore champion. As shitty as that title was, first ever hardcore champion. It was Mankind. You get what I'm saying? First ever SmackDown Tag Team Champions. The first time when the brands first split, it was Edge and Rey Mysterio, or it was Kurt Angle and Chris Benoit, one of those two teams. But those were the two teams fighting for it. Those are big names. First ever Universal Champion, Finn Balor. You get what I'm saying? You see what I'm saying here? First ever World Heavyweight Champion, Triple H. It wasn't freaking Doink the Clown or Bubba Ray Dudley. You know what I'm saying? Like, those are decent people, decent characters. They have their spot. But they weren't gonna. They gave it to a top guy, an established talent, to get that title, that that title over, and make it a big deal, so that when somebody else would beat them, then they would become a bigger star. You get what I'm saying? So I don't understand why they gave it to Mustache Mountain. And going back into what I was talking about with the cruiserweight thing, why didn't they give it to? At the time, I was like, okay, it's fine. It's the first ever. It's the first time that they've done this. They give it to like some no name TJP. And when I say no name, I don't mean like nobody knew who they were. Just this is in my opinion. Okay, like I'm guessing most of the fans didn't know who TJP was at the time. So why not give it to one of these New Japan guys that came over for that event? Like give it to Kota Ibushi, give it to D. Brian Kendrick, a guy that more WWE fans would know. You get what I'm saying? And then they did the UK tournament, And Pete Dunne, in my eyes, was a bigger star than Tyler Bate because of like how he carried himself throughout the whole tournament. I was like, why did when they just give it to Pete Dunne, and then it turned out they gave it to Pete Dunne later on that year. So I was like, why not just start it off hot and give it to Pete Dunne, and then have Tyler Bate chase for the belt? Because I mean, Tyler Bate became a decent star. I'll give him that. But at the time, Pete Dunne, I believe, in my eyes, was more over than Tyler Bate. So Pete Dunne should have been the first ever United Kingdom champion. And the way that Pete Dunne has carried himself since just goes and proves my theory that they should have just given it to Pete Dunne to begin with. And then they did the Mae Young Classic. I thought somebody like Tony Storm or Candice LeRae could have been a way better choice to give that first ever Mae Young Classic title to. I mean, Kairi Sane and Shayna Baszler have become decent, over with fans, most fans. And at the end of it, that was fine. But I think they should have gave it to Tony Storm. They gave it to Tony Storm. Jesus, I couldn't talk there for a second. They gave it to Tony Storm the second time, so why not? So they saw something in her now, so that means they saw something in her back then, and I think she was big enough to give her that first ever Mae Young Classic title, or even Candice LeRae, who was coming off the Indies, one of the top indie female wrestlers. So they keep doing these first ever titles or tournaments, and they give it to like these scrubs that could benefit from winning it, but the second time, like beating a bigger star that should win it. And I think Mustache, when they missed a they missed the boat here by giving the tag titles to Mustache Mountain, and then having the guys that won it, Drake and Gibson, the titles down the line, to make them feel a little bit bigger than they did on NXT UK Blackpool. We got some of that NXT stuff out of the way, and I didn't really want to talk about NXT, but I was like, the takeover took place. Why not just bring up a couple of things? And we're building up to NXT Phoenix. So we're done with some NXT. Let's go into main roster, the worst of the worst. But in my opinion, I thought Raw was pretty decent, at least the beginning, middle, and end, and how they set all that stuff up. Because I've been saying that, like, obviously not in the podcast because I haven't been doing this long, but like to myself, I've been saying, why don't they do a beginning, middle, and end like they used to do to build a show? And they did that, I think, decently with the Seth Rollins Bobby Lashley stuff. Now, this is probably an unpopular opinion again, but I mean, let's run down how the Seth Rollins storyline played out throughout the night. Okay, Seth Rollins Bobby Lashley storyline played out. We had them to start off the night, right, with that brawl. So I don't know what they were fighting about, but let's just say that I knew that it made sense. Okay, so they were brawling, they get split up, and then they come out to interrupt, or Bobby Lashley then comes out to interrupt the John Cena and Drew McIntyre stuff. So that gave you a reason why Bobby Lashley and Drew McIntyre would be in a team. And they've also been tagging here and there since like November. So anyway, Bobby Lashley comes out to interrupt those guys having a promo, and then Seth Rollins comes out and attacks Bobby Lashley again, and then it turns into a six-man tag team match. So then that's the middle part. Okay, we're now into the middle part of the story. We just finished the beginning. The middle is this six-man tag team match. Seth Rollins goes over, defeats Dean Ambrose in the middle of the ring, 1, 2, 3, which leads us to the backstage. And people are probably gonna say, why does Seth Rollins get a rematch for the Intercontinental Championship after the McMahon said you have to earn your rematches instead of just being handed them? Well, he just beat the Intercontinental Champion, so in my eyes he earned that shot, right? Okay, so that now we're done with the middle, with Seth Rollins going to the back asking for his rematch for the Intercontinental Championship, and Triple H is like, fine, you got it. Main event, Falls Count Anywhere for the IC Championship. Good luck, or whatever he said. So now we get to the end of the episode, right? We did the beginning, the middle. Now we're at the end. They have a match, Falls Count Anywhere, decent match, and Bobby Lashley comes out. Remember, this was the whole storyline throughout the night, Bobby Lashley and Seth Rollins. So now he comes out calls Seth Rollins the match, covers. No, he didn't cover that. Dean Ambrose just comes over, crawls over, covers him, pins him, and then the match is over. Seth Rollins loses because of Bobby Lashley, the guy that the guys that were having a rivalry built. The whole show was built around this rivalry of Seth Rollins and Bobby Lashley, right? So it's only fitting that it would end with Bobby Lashley and Seth Rollins. Now, when they did the six-man tag earlier in the night, I was kind of like, why not just save it for the end and have something in the middle? But then they kind of did this at the end, so I was fine with. I was like, okay, I see what they did the six-man tag earlier. They could have put it on any other part of the show and it would have been just as fine. But I went from being, why the fuck are they doing the six-man tag now instead of the main event, to saying, okay, I get why they did it. So it's not always about, do we want this feud to go on? Do we want this rivalry to take place? It's, how are they building the feud? How are they booking it, right? Like I said last week with the whole Steve Austin and the petition stuff from that one episode of SmackDown in the 2000s. That was built perfectly. That built the whole SmackDown show, and obviously it was with Steve Austin, so a top star. How they built a storyline around him throughout the whole episode. It wasn't just one segment. You're in, you're out. We're done with you. Let's just leave it at that, right? They build something. They build the storyline. They booked it right. And in my opinions, that is why. In my opinion, I don't want to say my opinions, but yeah, I thought that was a decent Raw because of that. Now there was some shit. Obviously, we're always gonna get shit, and obviously in the Attitude Era, we got Mae Young giving birth to a hand. So not every segment is gonna be a hit, or is gonna be a hit with everybody, obviously. And we saw some stupid stuff with the mixed match challenge and the moment of bliss. What did I tell you guys? I told you not to brag or anything, but I told you that segment was gonna be either okay or ass, and it was closer to being an ass segment, right? But Sasha Banks winning, it was fine. It sets up what should be a good match between her and Ronda Rousey at the Royal Rumble. So at least we got that. But the whole moment of bliss segment was just god awful. I told you guys, and if they do it again, it's probably gonna be ass again, unless they give Alexa Bliss somebody she can play off of in her promo, in her interview. So Raw was Raw was I'll give it a 6 out of 10. I'll give it that high just because of the beginning, middle, and end. So yeah, and the Braun Strowman stuff. Don't even get me started with that. That was terrible. What the hell happened to Braun Strowman? Did he actually forget his lines, or was Paul Heyman supposed to say something and he never did, and they just let Braun Strowman out there to flounder, and then until Brock Lesnar came out and didn't touch him. Now people might have a problem with that Brock Lesnar was there and nothing really happened. He just circled the ring. I think Braun Strowman is still injured, so they couldn't really do anything either way. And I think they had booked already like Brock Lesnar to be at that Monday night, and it just so happens that Braun Strowman couldn't do anything physically, so that's why nothing really came out of that promo besides them talking and Braun Strowman unfortunately forgetting his lines. But now, as I've been saying, Braun Strowman is really dead in the water, right? I mean, if you're a fan of Braun Strowman right now, you shouldn't be a fan of professional wrestling. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. This guy, if they gave him the freedom to talk, just kind of like how they've been giving Rusev the freedom to talk, I mean, he's just not showing how good he is on the mic. He's better off being scripted and in short doses. So Braun Strowman, if he doesn't win the Universal Championship at the Royal Rumble, he's pretty much. I mean, I don't know why they will still have him on the roster. You know what I mean? Like he makes no sense of being, because he went from being a top guy that the fans liked, maybe even loved at the spot that he was at. Now they've killed him so many times by giving him that tag match with Nicholas. Then they made him fail at cashing in his briefcase, and then he's failed at beating Brock Lesnar multiple times. So now if he fails once again, he's pretty much done. Like there's no reason why you keep paying him to be on the roster. So yeah, Braun Strowman, I've been saying it for weeks, probably possibly even months. Braun Strowman doesn't do it for me anymore. They killed him, and it's not really his fault because I enjoyed what he did, but it's basically WWE's stupidity and how they booked him that really did it for me. Like I don't really care what happens to Braun Strowman anymore. And why not just leave the title on Brock Lesnar and possibly, hopefully, they have somebody beat him at WrestleMania that fans actually care about. Moving on, let's talk about some of the SmackDown that happened this past week as well. Not that much stuff, but something that I got out of it was Mandy Rose, man. I'm really impressed with what she's been doing. And the first week that it happened, I was like, it was still a pretty decent showing from her. But I was like, what the hell are they doing with this whole Uso and Naomi and Mandy Rose stuff? But the way that she's been carrying herself and her cutting her promos and just carrying herself the last couple weeks with this segment, with this storyline, I mean, she is she could possibly be a top star in the next year or so if they continue to have her, you know, just do this what she's doing right now. I don't know what you would call it, sexualizing herself, just being herself. I don't know what the hell she's doing, being a prick, trying to steal other women's men. I don't know. Whatever she's doing right now, keep it going for another couple months. But for the love of God, please don't have her lose matches. You have us interested, don't have her lose because then we're just gonna not take her seriously. You know what I mean? So hopefully she gets wins and she continues to do what she's doing because I like it. I'm not saying I like the storyline. I'm not saying I like what Naomi's doing or what Sonya Deville is doing, being along her side, but just Mandy Rose, what she's doing right now, I enjoy it, and hopefully she can keep growing. Obviously, she's not the best of wrestlers, but I mean, if her character is good, her wrestling will, take a back seat to that, and fans won't really care as long as she's like continue, kind of like Elias. She could be a good superstar, not really a good wrestler, but if she's a great superstar and a decent wrestler, you know what I mean? She'll be fine in the business. And keeping it on the ladies' side, we had the Becky Lynch, Carmella, and Charlotte match, which last week I said, why the hell were they having this match? And to this day, I'm still, why the hell did they have this match? If Becky Lynch was gonna win, right? Why the hell did they even cancel the match in the first place? That Paige supposedly made back when the McMahons took over. They could have just left it as, oh, Paige, as your last act as general manager, will allow any match that you want at the Royal Rumble. What do you want? And Paige is just like, well, I would really like to see Becky Lynch get a rematch against Asuka. Okay, then we give you that match as your last official act as general manager. We'll leave it at that. Becky Lynch versus Asuka. Instead, they had to do this whole three-way match, which made no sense, and we ended up at the same conclusion: Becky Lynch versus Asuka at the Royal Rumble. Now, now what do they do? Like, do you have Becky Lynch lose, and then her momentum keeps on sinking because she keeps losing, or not keeps on losing because she hasn't, but her momentum will just keep going down because she not only loses this women's match, this women's title match, but I'm guessing she's out of the Rumble, right? And she won't win the Rumble, so what does she do then after that? And if you give the belt back to Becky Lynch, why the fuck did she lose it at TLC in the first place? So I'm actually curious to see what they do here. And there has been speculation, innuendo, if you will, that at WrestleMania it's going to be a three-way between Charlotte, Ronda, and Becky at WrestleMania. I don't know if I said WrestleMania, but yeah, that's going to be the rumor for WrestleMania, or that is a rumor for WrestleMania. Jesus, that's going to be a triple threat match for a women's championship. I've heard that it's going to be for the Raw championship or the SmackDown championship. I have no idea why it will be for the SmackDown, but whatever. That's not the problem that I have. The problem is, okay, if you're gonna have Becky Lynch go towards WrestleMania to take on Ronda Rousey, why are you throwing Charlotte in the mix? We saw that match already. Just because you want your quote unquote golden child, that's what I'm calling her. your golden child to get some of that publicity, some of that rub off of the Ronda Rousey and Becky Lynch heat to rub off on her as well. Like, what is the point of adding Charlotte to it? Just for that? Just for the publicity? It makes no sense. Have Charlotte if you're gonna have. I'm guessing now Charlotte is in the Rumble, and obviously Ronda Rousey isn't. So I'm guessing I'm fine with Charlotte winning the Rumble, but then have her face Asuka for the Women's Championship, and then have Becky Lynch face Ronda for the Raw Women's Championship. Keep those separate. And if you're gonna have Charlotte Ronda in any capacity at WrestleMania, just take Becky Lynch out of it because she's just gonna be the third wheel. We already know what's gonna happen. Becky Lynch is gonna be whining and complaining about why Charlotte gets into this match. Now, obviously, they could make it into a good storyline there, the way that they did it at SummerSlam. But you're just giving Charlotte this you're just putting her into this three way if it is gonna happen. But it's just a rumor. But if you are just gonna throw Charlotte into this Becky Ronda feud just so that Charlotte, your little baby doll, your little blonde whatever, can get into this match just to get some publicity, some of the rub from the Becky Lynch and Ronda Rousey heat. Some, you know, why? She does not belong in that feud right now. You can save her for a SummerSlam match with Ronda Rousey. In my eyes, now that Asuka won the first Rumble and she deserved it, but now the way that the four horsewomen of NXT, Bayley, Sasha, Charlotte, and Becky have all turned out, they need to give a Rumble win to Charlotte, and then either Becky or Sasha, one of those two. Though all those four women should not win the Rumble, and I wouldn't complain if they all didn't. You know what I'm saying? So Charlotte, but Charlotte, I'll give you that. You need to give Charlotte a Rumble just to finish off her career and to make all the titles that she's won kind of mean something. Wrap up her whole career. She's won multiple titles. She's won the Rumble. You also need to give her. Actually, I don't know if you do, but if you gave her a Money in the Bank win, I'd be fine with that as well. I just don't understand why you would want to throw her into this Becky Lynch Ronda Rousey feud at WrestleMania. That WrestleMania feud, in my opinion, is just between Becky and Ronda. Keep it like that. That's what it was supposed to be a Survivor Series. And since we didn't get it and we got Ronda versus Charlotte, we don't need Charlotte in that match anymore against Ronda at WrestleMania. Just make it Becky versus Ronda at WrestleMania. You don't need to add Charlotte, and I've said that like 20 times already, but that's just how I feel. I don't know what they're gonna do at the Rumble. It's actually gonna be after the Rumble. We're gonna have a lot more answers to what the WrestleMania card with the women's championship matches are gonna look like, and I'm actually really intrigued. I'm not saying I'm going to be happy, but I'm really intrigued at what they're gonna do with Becky, Asuka, Charlotte, and Ronda. How all those we all those women are gonna go headed towards WrestleMania. And then we're gonna have Rey Mysterio versus Andrade Cien Almas. And this is what I'm gonna bring up: a channel that I came across a couple months ago when the whole stuff was going around boycott Raw. I was part of that movement, by the way. And if you want to boycott Raw, go ahead. Uh, Tag me at double G times 2 Link in the description. But enough of that. A channel that I came across was BC Amplified. B and the letter C, like capitalized, amplified. Um, and he had this thing on one of his podcasts that he did on YouTube. So I'll I'll show you guys what I'm talking about. His channel, I mean, and you guys can go look for him on the YouTube. Go. He did this thing where he would take a talent. For example, he took Andrade Cien Almas, he took Elias and Seth Rollins, and he went back and look at their last 8 to 12 matches, and he looked to see how they were booked in terms of wins and losses. And he went back and looked at Andrade Cien Almas' last 12 matches, right? And he was talking about how everybody's 50-50 booked and how nobody's becoming a big superstar anymore because they are 50-50 booked. And a great example of that is Andrade Cien Almas. He went back and looked at Almas' last 12 matches, right? And the record was two wins, 10 losses as of last week, I believe. And are you kidding me? This guy has all the makings of being the greatest Hispanic wrestler of our generation. He has a mouthpiece with him that helps him with his promos. He can go in the ring, so he has everything you're looking for. His physique is decent. You know, he's not freaking Randy Orton or John Cena or anything like that, but he has a good look, and he could appeal to a Mexican audience in a couple months if you turn him face because of what he can do in the ring and his mouthpiece, Selena Vega. And his last 12 matches, he's only won twice. He's gonna have a match with Rey Mysterio on SmackDown, and hopefully he wins that, gains some more momentum. But the thing is, if he wins against Rey Mysterio this upcoming week, then is he just gonna lose to Rey Mysterio the week after, or in 2 weeks when they have a rematch? They need to make these guys feel like they belong on the show. In real life, if, for example, in UFC, if a guy won 2 out of his last 12 matches, he would be let go. He would be fired on the spot. He wouldn't even have 12 matches to begin with. After he lost that third or fourth match, he would be let go. Right? So, how is that any different than a show that we're supposed to be taking as seriously as real sports if these guys are losing but they're still on the show somehow? Now, no offense to Andrade Cien Almas, obviously, because he's not the one booking himself to lose, but they really need to stop with this 50-50 booking. And going back to what I was talking about, he went back and looked at Seth Rollins' last 8 matches, and he is even 50-50 booked. A guy that we're supposed to be taking seriously at this top as this top guy that could possibly win the Royal Rumble and then go on to face Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania. We're supposed to believe that a guy that loses for that his winning percentage is 50% is supposed to beat a guy like Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania? Come on now, we're not supposed to. How are we supposed to believe that? So it just goes back to Andrade Cien Almas. He needs to get a win here, and he needs to continue that momentum. He can't lose to Rey Mysterio if he does win this upcoming match on SmackDown. And then if he loses to Rey Mysterio, that just proves my point that why are these guys on the show if they're just gonna keep on losing? And that takes me into my last topic, AEW, and what they said in their press conference. And what they said in their press conference, what Cody Rhodes said was, and what Tony Khan kind of said afterwards in the little media scrum, was that wins and losses are going to mean something in AEW, which should really be, it should mean a lot in any promotion that wants to be taken seriously as a sports slash entertainment company. You know what I mean? Wins and losses should mean everything. So AEW, I think they're actually gonna. I mean, any other company besides WWE, they take that seriously. Wins and losses. If you lose a lot, you're gonna be at the bottom of the card, or you're not even gonna be working for them. And if you're winning a lot, you're gonna be in the main event. The top storylines, fighting for the main championships, stuff like that. And something else. Shut up, computer. But something else that I found, or that I was looking at, was some rumored contracts that were given to Kenny Omega, Adam Page, and the Young Bucks. And I don't believe that they were going to give Kenny Omega as much money as these rumors said. I forget how much they said, but it was like in the 20 millions or something like that. I don't know for how many years, but maybe it is true. It was just throughout a certain amount of years that he was going to be making $20 million. But the contract that did stick out in my head, and I was like, "There's no way," or there is a way, but let me explain what would have happened. Was for the Young Bucks. Now the Young Bucks were gonna get. This is what the rumors say. All right, so we'll take that with a pinch of salt, grain of salt. Supposedly, they were going to be making AJ Styles type of money, and according to Forbes, AJ Styles was making somewhere around $2 million, $3 million. So for a tag team to be making that much money, that would be insane for the Young Bucks. They would get 3 years. The show that they have on YouTube, being the Elite, would be on the WWE Network uh, weekly, and then in 6 months, this is the one that really caught my attention. In 6 months, if they did not like how they were being booked, the Young Bucks had an option to get out of their contract. So let's start this with saying, all right. So the money, and by the way, I if this is true, which again I'm not really sure because I don't really like this whole rumored about contracts, because how the fuck do you actually know the exact details and the numbers behind the contracts where a company like WWE does not give that out? You know what I mean? So this is just speculation, but let's talk about it. So obviously the money would be there because WWE has been making so much money this past year with this whole Saudi Arabia stuff, the stuff in Australia, the money that they made there, and the TV deal that they're gonna get later on with SmackDown going to Fox. So the money would be there, obviously. And I commend the Young Bucks for turning down. Can you imagine that? A tag team in 2018, 2019, turning down a multi-million dollar contract because of how WWE has been running their company and how they've been treating their talent. Imagine that. If I told you that 5 years ago that a tag team will be making millions of dollars and they turned it down, would you believe me? No, right? You'd be like, they'd be dumb not to accept that money. But the way that WWE has been treating their talent and running their shows, they made a tag team say, "No, we don't want that. We'll go to AEW instead." So that's something I commend them for, and hopefully AEW does succeed and they make a whole lot more money than they ever dreamed about. And they continue with their success. I was never really a Young Bucks fan, especially since they don't really. I've never really seen a match of theirs, so that's part one why I've never been a Young Bucks fan. But I commend them for turning down this contract and kind of having their their Jesus, what's the word? I don't know. I'll forget about that. Something something something. Jesus, what the hell? What was I talking about? Ooh. Oh, and then now let's go on to the contract that said, or the thing that said about the being the Elite Series going to the WWE Network. So that, and then I doubt that they would have full control for one, and there's no way that, all right, they could go on their weekly, right? But there's no way. First of all, like I said, they would not have full creative control over that series like they do now on YouTube. Excuse me, and then they would go. That show would turn into the Long Island Ice Sea Story, whatever the Zack Ryder called his show on YouTube. Remember that? Yeah, that's what we'd be saying about being the Elite. Remember that show that used to be good on YouTube? That's what we would be saying as fans in a year or two if they would have signed, because that show would be taken off the air in about a year, if not sooner, and they would not have creative control like they would want if being the Elite went to the WWE Network. And then finally, they also had something about they would come in the Royal Rumble and then have a full storyline built out for them all the way to WrestleMania. And that storyline will probably be against the fucking New Day. And it would be a decent storyline, but whatever. And then the thing about them being able to get out in 6 months if they didn't like their storylines or how they were being booked. So what would the WWE do? This is what they would do. They would book them however they wanted to be booked for 6 months, and then once that clause in their contract ran out after the seventh month, or after that 6 month where they couldn't back out anymore, they would start booking them like ass. They would start treating them like trash. They would book them to lose multiple times. They would have them look like complete jokes on TV, and then they couldn't do anything because they couldn't get out of their contract anymore. So yeah, WWE makes it sound all good and jolly at the beginning when they're presenting these contracts to them. But once they have you in there, we've heard stories of how they're gonna treat you like they want to treat you. You're not gonna have control of anything, and they're just gonna take over. They're just gonna basically own you as a talent and not really let you do whatever you want to do. So that wouldn't that probably would have been the exact same stuff that they would have done to the Young Bucks if they would have signed, giving them all these promises, made it look great for the beginning, and then once they had them, once they couldn't get out of their contract, and they had them, and AEW couldn't take them, then they would start treating them like any other talent. They would book them to lose and all that stuff, and then the Young Bucks will probably regret it. Obviously, I don't want to speak for them, but that's how most talent feel. I mean, can you believe this? That all if AEW becomes a threat to WWE, right? Sponsors want to go to AEW instead of WWE, or AEW takes some TV time from, or AEW takes some TV time from WWE, or takes their TV deals or whatever. If companies want to go with AEW instead of WWE because they have a better product, just think about this. What if everything, all that could have been done for WWE to prevent that? If AEW does become a threat, all they had to do was take the face paint off Cody Rhodes and allow him to be Cody Rhodes. Just imagine that. It's just something as simple as giving a guy a little bit of creative freedom and doing a little bit of what he wanted in his gimmick. That's all they had to do to prevent, like I said, if AEW does become a threat, all they had to do was give this guy a little bit of creative freedom. That's all they had to do. If I was the CEO of a company and an employee said, can I not wear a tie certain days instead of wearing a tie every single day? And I said, no, don't do that. And then he went off and started his own company where none of his employees had to wear a tie, and they ran me out of business just because I let that employee went away because he didn't want to wear a tie, and I said no. Like, that's something as stupid as what could happen if AEW does become a threat to WWE. WWE did not let a guy take face paint off and allow him to do a little bit more creative freedom with his character. And then he said, "All right, you're not gonna let me do that. All right, I'm leaving." And then he starts his own company and could possibly, obviously, probably not, kill the WWE, but become a threat and maybe take their sponsorship deals, cost them money basically. And something as simple as, okay, you could take your face paint off. It just boggles my mind that WWE doesn't swallow their pride, or their ego is too big to allow something as simple as that to be done on their TV. I went a little bit more on a ramble, on a rant than I intended to on some of those topics, but hopefully as the weeks go on, and like I said, next week I will not be doing a podcast. I won't be back until the Royal Rumble predictions, which is in 2 Wednesdays from now. But hopefully in the weeks coming up, I don't ramble as much, I don't rant as much as I do in these episodes, because I'm just kind of getting used to it. And yeah, so that does it for me here today. If you enjoyed, hit the like button, and if you enjoyed even more, subscribe to let me know that you're actually enjoying this stuff, and also leave comments, leave some questions down below, and maybe I'll get to them next week, or not next week obviously, but in a couple weeks when I do a podcast again, I'll get to them and I'll talk about them, shout you out, answer your questions, anything that you might have for me that you want to see or hear me talk about in these episodes. And if you guys enjoy longer episodes, let me know also, because I'm trying to keep these as short as I can, just because I don't want to be on here that long. But if you guys prefer longer episodes, let me know. My universe mode is out and about. It should be, at least. There should be an episode dropping every day this week. Hopefully, this does come out Monday morning or Monday afternoon before Monday Night Raw. Links for anything that you might need in the description. Hope you guys enjoyed. See y'all next time.